Have you ever wondered what really happens after death? Are heaven and hell real, or perhaps deeper symbols carrying spiritual meaning beyond what we can imagine? The truth is that in many traditions, these places are seen as final destinations. But what about in Buddhism? Is the Buddhist view of heaven and hell the same as we find in monotheistic religions? In today's video, we will explore the fascinating Buddhist view of heaven and hell and how it can transform the way we see life, death, and even our everyday actions. If you think you already know the answer, stay with us until the end, because there are many surprising details you've probably never heard of. And of course, if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and activate the bell to receive our videos about spirituality and Buddhist teachings. If you like the video, leave your like and share it with your friends who are also interested in deep and reflective themes. Now, without further ado, let's get to the topic. Most religions we know talk about heaven and hell as places of eternal reward or punishment. In Christianity, for example, heaven is a place of eternal peace, where good souls go to enjoy the presence of God, while hell is a place of eternal pain and suffering reserved for those who have committed grave sins. However, in Buddhism, the concept of heaven and hell is quite different. In Buddhism, these are not eternal destinations. Instead of places of final punishment or reward, heaven and hell are just stages in the cycle of Samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This concept of Samsara is central to understanding the Buddhist view of life, death, and the beyond. While monotheistic religions generally see life as a single opportunity, where our actions determine the final destination, Buddhism teaches that life is cyclical. Each being is reborn countless times as their actions or karma determine their next destination. Samsara is, therefore, the cycle that traps all beings who have not yet achieved enlightenment. In this cycle, there can be lives both in heavenly worlds and in hellish worlds. But what exactly does this mean? And how does a person end up being assigned to be reborn in a heaven or a hell? To begin, it is important to clarify that, in Buddhism, heaven and hell are more than just metaphors for emotional states. Although it is common to interpret heaven and hell as mental states of happiness or suffering, Buddhism goes beyond that. According to the teachings of the Buddha, there are 31 planes of existence, or worlds, where beings can be reborn. These planes range from the highest realms, which can be compared to what we call heaven, to the lowest realms, which we can call hell. These worlds are distinct realities where beings live according to the karma they have accumulated in their previous lives. For example, someone who has cultivated virtue, compassion, and wisdom may be reborn in one of the heavenly realms, where they experience great pleasure and happiness. On the other hand, someone who has engaged in acts of cruelty, violence, or selfishness may be reborn in one of the hellish realms, where they suffer immensely. An essential characteristic of these realms is that they are not eternal. Just as on earth, the conditions in these worlds are also impermanent. Those reborn in a heaven will still age and eventually die. Similarly, those reborn in a hell are not condemned forever. After a period of suffering, these beings will also have the opportunity to be reborn in other planes, according to the karma they have accumulated. To better illustrate this concept, let's talk about a famous Buddhist story about heaven and hell, called The Story of the Samurai and the Monk. Once, a samurai known for his explosive temper and thirst for vengeance went to a Zen monk in search of wisdom. He wanted to understand the difference between heaven and hell. Impatient and arrogant, he asked the monk, "What is heaven and what is hell?" The monk calmly looked at him and said, "You are just a brute." I don't understand how someone like you could even hold a sword, let alone be a samurai. You are a disgrace." Enraged, the samurai drew his sword and was about to attack the monk. At that exact moment, the monk said, "That is hell." Shocked, the samurai stopped and reflected on the anger consuming him. Suddenly, he understood the monk's teaching and, feeling grateful, lowered his sword and thanked him with a deep bow. The monk then smiled and said, "And that is heaven." This story teaches us that heaven and hell are not just physical places, but also states of mind that we can experience in our daily lives, depending on how we deal with our emotions and reactions. Now, how is it determined where a person will be reborn? The answer lies in the law of karma. In Buddhism, karma is the law of cause and effect. This means that all our actions, both physical and mental, generate consequences. Good actions generate positive karma, which can lead to rebirths in higher planes, while bad actions generate negative karma, which can result in rebirths in lower realms. For example, if a person lives according to Buddhist precepts, avoiding harming other beings, helping those in need, being honest, compassionate, and living wisely, they will be cultivating positive karma. This will lead them to be reborn in one of the heavenly planes, where they can enjoy a life full of happiness. However, this happiness is not permanent. Eventually, the celestial being also experiences aging and death, and their karma will determine the next rebirth. On the other hand, if a person lives selfishly, causing suffering to others, lying, stealing, or acting cruelly, they will be accumulating negative karma. This karma can result in rebirth in one of the hellish realms, where the soul will undergo intense suffering. But even in these realms, suffering is not eternal. Negative karma eventually exhausts itself, and the being will have the opportunity to be reborn in a different plane. What does all this mean for our daily lives? How can we apply this understanding of heaven, hell, and karma practically? Buddhism teaches us that our present life is the perfect opportunity to accumulate positive karma. This does not mean just doing good deeds sporadically, but living ethically, compassionately, and wisely in all our interactions. To go to heaven, in the Buddhist context, it is not enough to simply follow a list of rules, but to cultivate the right intention behind actions. The practice of loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, empathetic joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekkha, are fundamental to generating positive karma and creating a mind free of negativity. These qualities, in addition to helping in our future life, also transform our present existence, making it more peaceful and harmonious. Imagine someone who lives a life of honesty, helping others, respecting living beings, and dedicating time to meditation and spiritual growth. This person will naturally be inclined to generate positive karma, resulting in a future life in the higher realms, comparable to what we call heaven. To further deepen our understanding, we can consider other Buddhist stories and teachings. One example is the story of Angulimala, a feared murderer who accumulated extremely negative karma. However, after a transformative encounter with the Buddha, Angulimala repented and dedicated the rest of his life to spiritual practice, eventually achieving enlightenment. This story illustrates that regardless of accumulated karma, there is always the possibility of redemption and transformation. Another example is the story of Kisa Gotami, a woman who lost her only child and, in her grief, sought the Buddha for a way to bring him back to life. The Buddha, instead of performing a miracle, asked her to bring a mustard seed from a house that had never known death. Unable to find such a house, Kisa Gotami realized the universality of suffering and became a dedicated follower, achieving inner peace through understanding and acceptance. To better understand the concept of samsara, it is essential to understand that it represents not only a cycle of rebirths, but also the repetition of behavioral and thought patterns that perpetuate suffering. In Buddhism, liberation from this cycle is achieved through the development of wisdom and understanding of the true nature of reality. The impermanent nature of existence. One of the central teachings of Buddhism is impermanence, anicca. Everything in the universe is in constant change, and attachment to permanent things or states is a source of suffering. By recognizing impermanence, practitioners can begin to detach from the illusions that keep them trapped in samsara. The interconnection of all beings. Another fundamental principle is interdependence, pratyasamutpada, which teaches that all phenomena arise in relation to other phenomena. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is interconnected. By understanding this interconnection, individuals can cultivate compassion and empathy, essential for developing positive karma. The Buddhist view of heaven, hell, and the cycle of samsara offers a rich and complex perspective on life and death. It challenges us to live consciously, cultivating actions and intentions that benefit ourselves and others. By understanding and applying these teachings, we can transform our present and future lives, moving toward liberation and inner peace. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue exploring these spiritual and philosophical themes, don't forget to like, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Also, leave your comments below. We want to know what you think about the cycle of samsara and Buddhist teachings. See you in the next video.